Good morning, everyone. This next session is Fuel for Thought, Streaming Fuel Management Payment Processing. And it's going to be delivered by Lyn Faulk, who works with us here at AgileAssets, and Michelle Cheeseman, who is a computer support specialist at Montana DOT. I've known Michelle since she came into the equipment group at Montana. Had some interesting conversations with Michelle through the years, and have really grown to respect Michelle's ability in the fleet area. And Lyn Faulk, well, I think probably everybody knows Lyn. And I'll just leave it at that. No, Lyn is a... Do what?
They're recording you.
Oh, are they? Okay. Never mind. Lyn is a very bright young lady that works with AgileAssets, and we're thrilled to have her on our team. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to these two ladies. I didn't know this was streaming.
It's not streaming, it's just being recorded.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Lyn. This is going to be Michelle. It is Michelle. And we're going to be talking about streamlining the fuel management payment processing. I'm going to give a very, very broad overview just in the first couple slides, because I know you guys would rather hear Michelle talk, and then she'll get actually into the details and how it works. So if you're a little lost about it when I'm going through it, Michelle will cover everything in the process from start to finish. And then if you still have any questions, please tag us after. But I just didn't want to be repetitive through it. So again, we are going to be, I said the microphone, sorry. We're going to be talking on the fuel management payment processing, and this is really going to be for your fleet module, those credit cards that your drivers use at the gas stations, whether it's internal, external, things like that, how to monitor what's coming through, how to validate what's coming through, and then actually how to get it into your Agile system. And Michelle will talk about the benefits of that also, so the process of it and the benefits of it. So when you're using a payment processing solution, WEX is one example, and that's what Montana uses, so that'll kind of be the one that gets more focus, but there are a couple of them. I don't want anyone to think I'm up here trying to sell WEX. That's not really what I'm doing. You're going to have two types of transactions that can really happen. So you're going to have repair order transactions, and you're going to have fueling transactions. Your repair order transactions, though, those are going to be more such repair orders that you can get done at a service station. So it might be a PM if your PM is an oil change, or it might be something like the emission test or air filters, something small, something that you don't really put your car into a shop for. It's going to be a quick turnaround, usually the half-hour, hour turnaround. It's not going to, this is not in any way replacing the repair order, either in-house or commercial repair order processing that we have in Agile. It's just the quick turnaround service stations. Then you have the fueling. And in fueling, we'll get into this more in just 1 minute, but you really have two types of fueling. You either have your internal fueling or your external fueling. I'm going to go with external first, even though it's second. External is going to be if your driver, let's say, stopped at a BP gas station, a Shell gas station, or a Texaco gas station. So that is them just fueling up, and they can use their WEX credit card for that. Your internal is going to be more of if you have internal fueling sites in your own DOT. So you already purchased all the fuel, you have bulk fueling sites, and the car goes there. So for your repair orders, some of these fuel codes that come through, and Michelle will talk about the fuel codes more in a minute, so this is one of the items where if you're getting a little confused, it'll be clarified. Some of these fuel codes are going to represent an activity. So when you go in and put in a repair order in fleet, you choose an activity associated with each one. Some of these are going to represent an activity, and you can map it to any of them. You can map it to an oil change, you can map it to a PM. You do want a one-to-one mapping, but that again will be covered later. Then what's going to happen is this process is going to create a repair order inside of the AgileAssets system. So that means that this repair order is going to show in all of your reporting. So any reporting that you have set up, now it's going to come in. It's also going to show in your repair history on the inventory tab, and then it'll also show inside of repairs. So you can see it in both places, and it's going to show up in all your reporting. It'll act just as though you put in the repair order through the system itself. And then you're going to have your fueling records, and this is where fueling has the two different parts, the internal and the external. So some of your fuel codes are going to map to a fuel type. So that is going to be, once again, we're going to want a one-to-one mapping, but it'll come through. You'll have your internal and your external. For all of your internal, what that means is that you actually depleted the stock that you had. And so your materials management, we're going to go in and deplete that stock. So we're going to map the fueling record to a stock and go in and deplete it. After that, you're going to insert the record into equipment fueling, and that will also show in all of the module screens and in all of your reporting. For any external, that means that you did not actually take your own stock. That was the BP, the Exxon, the Shell gas stations. And so that we simply insert into equipment fueling, and it will show in all of your reporting and in all the module screens. So that does not go in and actually deplete your stock. So the internal will make the material transaction record. That way when you go into resources and look at material, you'll see the out records in there. So everything will show up, and it will tell you where it went, and your equipment fueling record will always match back to that. The external is just going to be the equipment fueling record, because you did not take your own stock. So again, I'm sorry if you are still a little confused on the process, because now I want to hand it over to Michelle, where she's actually going to go from start to finish, how you get the file, how it works, and the benefits of it. So without further ado.
Hello, good morning. So I'm Michelle with Montana Department of Transportation, and I've been with the department for about 10 years. I've been with Fleet for about 8 years. So we've been importing our fuel transactions since 2004 with the old AgileAssets Power Build system. So that's where we started out with the importing our fleet. And then last year, in May of 2015, we then upgraded to 7.0, and we're still processing all of our fuel transactions with our newest version. Okay, how it works. Okay, so we have the fuel cards. We map every fuel card to a unit number. So every unit, we have over 4,800 pieces of equipment, will get a fuel card that's attached to it. And that's how we map it in our WEX, which is our vendor at the current time, in their system, and then also in our system. The drivers run their fuel card at the pump, and when they run their fuel card at the pump, they are going to put in their odometer and their confidential PIN number that's assigned to them. And the reason they put in their odometer, it's one level of security, and it also is for our MPG tracking. So sometimes we get our drivers that are a little lazy, and they'll put in 00, they'll put in 5, and we see those transactions come through, and we know that that's an invalid odometer, and we can correct that odometer before we actually take in those records into our system. And then they get a little nasty email from us saying, don't be lazy, put your correct odometer in when you're fueling up your car. So don't get any ideas, Doug. So we do, because that's how we use that odometer at the pump for our miles per gallon reports. Okay, fuel transactions are imported monthly with our current vendor, WEX, Right Express, and we import those fuel transactions monthly. Sure.
I don't know why this is not. Does anyone know why this isn't mapping? What's on here?
Oh, it just stopped, didn't it? Okay. You want me to read? So it's not going past the, yeah, I think.
Screens froze, but the computer's.
Still going? That is weird.
I think we had this happen in another session.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
There we go.
See if that
We're
works.
back on track. Okay, sorry about that. Some technical difficulties there. So our fuel from our miscellaneous equipments are tracked from a fuel card, from one fuel card for each section. So we have a lot of miscellaneous equipment that's out there, like our chainsaws, things like that, that are going to take fuel. And we don't necessarily assign them a fuel card for that miscellaneous equipment. So we assign it by the section. And that section is then responsible to track their fuel in a log. And they use their miscellaneous card that's assigned to that section. And when those fuel transactions come in, we will remove them from our import because we just do a balancing from their logs to their transactions that are coming through on that card. So then we can have reconciliation done at that point. But we do not import them into our fleet Agile Assets application because it's miscellaneous equipment. But we do that verification reconciliation. Okay, Montana has over 68 bulk tanks. 17 of those bulk tanks we have on a POS system, the point of sale system. So that means a point of sale, they can run their fuel card at the pump, and it acts just like at a gas station at a vendor that they are receiving fuel. The other 51 bulk tanks have no POS system. Most of them are in remote areas where we cannot hook up a POS system. They're remotes where they're not going to get Wi-Fi or any type of internet, so they will not receive, so they don't have any POS systems. So all of those bulk tanks have a log sheet that they are logging their fuel, and we can, we will see all those bulk transactions come through the WEX import. So I'll show you, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So all the fuel transactions for the bulk tanks are connected to the POS system, and they are treated just as a merchant. They come through the WEX file. The fuel transactions that are on the bulk tank that are connected to a POS system, they're, like I said, they're logged manually, and then we actually punch all those manual transactions into our system. So because they're not on a POS system. Okay, the benefits of importing our fuel imports is because we have all the information at our fingertips. We don't have to go into two systems if we want to look up how many gallons or how much fuel this unit has used in the past month. We have that information right at our fingertips within our fleet management system. So we can check to see, what the miles per gallon, and also we can look at the total operating cost. What repair cost is running on it, how many gallons it's taking from a period of time, how much money we're spending on fuel, and we can take it all into consideration as cost, as operating cost. And that's all coming out of our fleet management system. We also are improving security and reducing the risk of fraud. When we bring in our fuel transactions, we have set up our fleet management system to only accept the fuel codes that we accept. So if there was fuel codes that we would not accept, those transactions would then error out, and we would know that that's an unaccepted transaction, and we would do further investigation of what that transaction is. For example, we had about a month ago, we had a transaction that came in as a 400, and this was not DOT, this was another state agency I was working with. But this 400 code meant it was a transaction through a gift certificate, and it was on their fuel card. And so that errored out because, of course, we're not going to accept, the state is not going to accept a purchase of a gift certificate. And so it was coming in as a gift certificate. It errored out of our fleet management system because it had no way to connect, because we didn't have that fuel 400 code set up in our system. So then we were able to follow up on that code and realize that it was for a gift card, and it was something that we don't accept, and it was through the Department of Administration, and they had to get in touch with the driver to see exactly what happened. And so that was something that he purchased on his fuel card and was actually purchasing it, and it probably was not associated with a state expense. So that is the how we can reduce the risk of fraud. Ease of administrative hassles. Once we import all those 16,000, it's an average of 16,000 transactions. They come into our system, and they just, as long as the product codes are set up, they just go right into our system. We no longer have to work with any of the transactions unless they error out because of the codes not being set up. Accurate reporting details. Like I mentioned, all of our operating cost is coming from our fuel for the number of gallons we use, how much we use, and so we have all this information on our reports, and we can capture all those information on our reports. Flag purchase, those are not approved. We talked a little bit more about that. And for record keeping. Let's go the other way. Oh. What is this thing doing?
That's a good
This way.
process.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the process. So Montana Department of Transportation is currently under a contract with WEX for 10 years. Before that, we go every 10 years with a vendor. Before WEX, I think it was WEX the last 10 years before that, and then it was a ComData. WEX produces a file monthly, and they put it out on their website, and we go into their website and we download the file into our system. So it's the WEX transaction report is posted monthly. The average MDT transactions around 16,000 records for our two accounts, which is motor pool and equipment. The WEX transaction report is downloaded into our application. And there are two jobs that the way we process the file in our system. The first job is set up, and that does the import and validation. So the file is out on a SharePoint. We take it from the WEX site, we pull the file down, put it on a SharePoint drive or a share drive, and the job goes out and picks up the report from that share drive, and it imports the file. Step 2 goes through a validation insert process where it will validate all the product codes that we have set up in our system, and then it will insert all those records. So the WEX, the job executes the file from the SharePoint, and it brings in all the 16,000 records, and then step 2 where the job imports all the approved product codes. So this is how it breaks down in our system. One other step that I wanted to mention, this window here, we actually code all of our product codes. These are all of our product codes, and we code every product code to an account billing, an account number. And this breaks down on a report so we can show what is under the accounts of fuel, which is the 62242 number, and then what is under repairs, which may be another 622 number. This report breaks down fuel and repairs. And that's for our counting process to know how much of it was fuel that we purchased and how much of it was repairs. Okay, Montana works with our standard fleet management module we work with the NACS fuel product codes, which is the National Association of Convenience Store Fuel Product Codes. That's a mouthful. And the NACS product codes is the standard product codes through the convenience stores. So every convenience store has a standard code that they use for fuel or if they use for oil, and they all use the same, they program all of their pumps with the same product code through NACS. So we, when we went live about a year ago, we standardized our system to use the NACS product codes. And the benefits of using the NACS product codes is when you go through different vendors every 10 years, you're not having to reprogram the vendor's product codes. You're using the standard codes, and you can go from WEX And then you can go to a, like, say, a US Bank or Comdata and go with different contracts. Let's see here. It just went blank.
We have no luck today.
You guys just want to quit?
Yeah, can we just
We're done. What do you have questions about?
I've done all I can do.
Me too. That screen's fine. He's just.
I didn't touch that.
She didn't.
So the odometer,
Mm-hmm.
if they put in junk when you do the import,
Mm-hmm.
so are you using any critical things inside the system for the odometer?
No, all we're doing is basically eye checking it to see, and most of the time, we can tell when it's a bad odometer, because people aren't very creative. They put in like 5 or 2 or zeros, or they're not very creative in their, you know, when they enter something in. So if they're not gonna go back in and turn on the car and get the correct odometer, they usually can something like a, you know, a miscellaneous number.
So you want to try to do some miles per gallon, but is it sort of like, we're going to produce some numbers, but they're not 100% accurate because we know that there's some problems entering? the
You're not gonna
data?
catch every one, but when you run your miles per gallon report monthly, you can see, if you're looking at eyeballing that report monthly, back on again. You can see if you're eyeballing that report every month and your total operation cost is off and your MPG is off, you know to go back in and you can look, I'll show you a window in EVMS, that our equipment vehicle management system, that shows all the fuel and the odometers, and you can tell which transaction is off and then go in there and fix it.
On your bulk, so you have people going out to the field, they have no POS. Have y'all thought about any ways that you can maybe automate it? Like maybe some flow sensors that say, I know I've dispersed this much fuel, something that you could do sort of an offline thing, or?
We have not, and the reason
Thank you.
For that is because in the areas that we have our bulk tank sites, we're very remote areas on mountain passes that they are, there's not a lot of activity of bulk fuel that comes out of those tanks. And I know a lot of those bulk tanks are used for disaster purposes, and we have to have them in those remote areas for national disasters and things like that. So we use it as a manual process where they log the fuel that they took from that tank.
So they're more for fuel storage for long-term benefits than everyday use.
Yes, I mean, and we have, we've had cases in the past where we've had, like fires and things like that, DNRC, where they've used our bulk tank fuel to be able to put out fires and things like that. So we have to, there are areas in those remote locations where we have to keep the tanks there.
Do y'all use fuel trucks?
I know DNRC does, we do not.
Okay.
And I know that Department of Corrections does also, they use fuel, tanks, trucks.
Okay, well, thanks for the question.
Oh,
We're
you're,
ready.
okay, awesome.
And just one more thing, in case anyone was wondering how step 1 and step 2 worked. The step 1 was the insert and validation, and that's though inserting that raw data from the file and then validating it. The step 2 would allow you, if you saw any errors, and Michelle will show you in a minute, if you saw any errors, you can correct them, revalidate, and then insert into the system. So that first insert, validate, insert the raw data, validate it. The second validate insert is revalidate anything that may have changed, and then insert into the application itself. So that's why it kind of looked like the same thing flip-flopped.
Okay, so we were talking about NACS product codes. So the benefits of going to NACS is so that when you go through different vendors, that you always have this standardized NACS product codes to use in your system. You're not having to change your product codes in your system to every vendor. Okay, so step 2, the import process. It goes through and it reads all the NACS product codes come into our system, and the NACS approved codes that we use that we approve at Montana are set up, and they do the step 2 does the validation, and from there we can reconcile and verify anything that is not that is invalid, any invalid product codes or any invalid vehicle numbers. It comes in and it shows like this, if you can see the screen. So this is our fueling table. I don't have a copy of our, okay, this is our fueling table, but it comes through on the validation table, and it shows it erroring out, and you basically have to go in and you have to fix the product code or research and review why that product code is erroring out, or that vehicle number. This screen here shows our EVMS's, which is our Equipment Vehicle Management System application. It shows the fueling history, and it breaks it down into 3 areas. The top area here is everything that's coming from a commercial site, and that's anything at like that they're purchasing on their WEX card. The middle area here is anything that's coming in through another source, like their Pro card or their bank card, or they paid for it, the employee paid for it. And the third window is anything that's coming from a bulk tank site. So this is for one unit number, and these are all the fueling records that are coming through from our WEX files monthly, and then with the 3 different views. Okay, so we talked about how it's broken up into 3 different views. This is a MPG report, and as you can see, it goes through. When we run it monthly, it shows our repair cost, it shows the number of gallons, and it shows the fuel, our total fuel, and it shows our total operating cost. Okay. MDT's fuel contract requires we go with a fuel card versus a bank card. There's plenty of bank cards out there like US Bank, and I think Chase is doing it now. Our agency requires us to go with a fuel card versus a bank card. And the reason for that is a bank card only has 1 level of security, where a fuel card actually has 3 levels of security. So we have the card, and then the PIN number, and then the odometer at the pump. And so our agency requires a 3-level security, and that we go with a fuel card versus a bank card. Okay. And we just, yes.
Let me ask you a question. On the odometer reading going into the WEX fuel card, does WEX have a way that they can look up the past odometer reading on that vehicle for the last time they bought fuel?
The only way they have of looking up that information in their system is through the report that they provide us, all the transactions.
Okay.
So if you're not capturing this information into your fleet program, and you're not capturing all the odometers to capture your MPG, it would be very difficult to try to go through a fuel card company or a bank card to get this information.
So when you talk about the 2 different processes and 2 different jobs that you run, and there's validation on the second one, and that's where you see the errors and go back and re-import, could you do edit checks or some kind of validation at that point to check to make sure that the odometer reading or the meter hours are within range?
That's a good idea.
So you actually do the validation twice, and what happens is you import that raw data file, and then you validate everything. And then you can go into the screen and see all the errors, not okay with the errors, but if you want to let everything else that didn't error out process, then what you can do is you can go ahead and run that second job, which is going to revalidate. So if you did make any changes, so let's say that you had an invalid product code. Oh shoot, it was actually, should have been mapped to this one, let me go in and change it. Then when you run that second job, it's going to revalidate that record. It's going to say, no, this one is okay. let's import it. So then that second job would revalidate anything that you may have changed and then insert the data. So during the validation, you can check for a range. The only issue you may have there is that during the last, you'd have to be sure and check it on the right column, because during the last fuel record and the new fuel record, if you did an odometer replacement and then started back at 0, you may have an issue. So we would just want to be sure that we check all the aspects that may flag something. Now you can say, you can have it check and then remove that error message when you do your validation. Nope, this is okay. Let's go ahead and let this one pass through. So there are options for there. We would just want to be sure that we're looking at everything.
Most of the time with our bad odometers, we don't have many drivers. They know to enter. We've trained them very well to make sure that they put the correct odometer in. Like I said, if you have a driver that is not going to put the correct odometer in, it's very easy to see where they made the error when you're looking at your MPG reports, and you can see the error very clearly because your MPG is going to be very high or low, depending on what they keyed in at the pump. So
Yeah, we have drivers like that too.
that are like, yeah.
One, you know, whatever. But we also have people that, like, if they fat finger it and they
Yeah.
have an extra 0 or whatever, then that just puts our utilization way off. And we don't know about that in our legacy system
Yeah.
until, you know, after the end of the month or whatever, and then we have to go back past the date and go back and fix it, so.
And I could see where there would be a benefit for Agile to create some type of validation check from the running odometer in the system, where it would be another validation check.
We can
from
do that
a
for
bad
sure.
odometer.
And the nice part is this is very great for all the MPG reporting, but that odometer doesn't affect your odometer reading on your equipment inventory table necessarily. So any processes going forward after that. So if someone were to fat finger 1 million and they meant to put in 100,000, when you go to load your biweekly timesheet or on your equipment odometer table, the rest of your processes aren't affected. So this isn't going to blow anything up going forward. It would just be on all that reporting, and that's when you're going to see, oh my goodness, how did this number get so out of whack? And then you can see where it came from.
That's a good point. Yes.
Just, kind of interested in timing the concept. Literally yesterday, signed into an enhancement, where we are actually going to build validations that are fueling transactions that state that it goes back and looks at the current inventory odometer, looks at that and says, if you're outside of 1,000 miles from that particular odometer, then throw us off and bring in a minimum, maybe a hard one, we haven't decided yet, but it will prevent us from allowing that transaction to hit until someone pushes it through, so it's something that we're actually engaged in right now. So,
Awesome. And where are you from?
Ohio.
Ohio. That's awesome. I think that that's definitely something that, we will have to look at too in the future.
Another thing I kind of wanted to ask, you guys have, you mentioned that MDNR, you utilize your bulk fuel.
Mhm.
Do you guys bill back for that when they utilize your bulk fuel? And do they use a Rex card when they
Our bulk-
utilize that?
Our bulk tanks, we actually get fuel delivered to our bulk tanks, and we pay for it at that time. And then once the bulk tanks, the fuel is used out, it's expensed out, then we take it out of our system. So we receive it.
Does DNRC reimburse us if they use it?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I missed the question. Yes, they do. We would journal, do a inside transaction that would journal them.
So you can
I'm
capture
sorry.
all that based on this process.
The fuel cards that they use. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We have something similar where we bill back to another agency, and it's very beneficial, so I'm really impressed with this process.
Yes, about 10 years, this new 10-year contract, which I think we're on about 6 years, the whole state came on. The state at one time had ComData, and we had WEX, and so we went through a state contract for all of our state agencies, and now we all are on the same vendor through WEX, and that is one of the benefits, is because we can see those transactions in case of emergency where they use their card, their WEX card. Yeah.
Montana have, like, they have their fleet module. You have a financial module, like, where your financial goes into a separate.
We actually build all of our billing financial processes right into our fleet module. No. No, we actually build it in two areas for our motor pool. We have a lease program and a day fleet program, and we actually bill all of our usage out. We do it off of a timesheet. We have a monthly timesheet.
Go through your supplier, business administration.
For our billing process,
Yeah, for example, like, where I'm going with this is the Idaho, we have a fleet module, but everything that we do within that then goes into our supplier advantage, which is our financial, housing, which is a whole separate, so we have that interface.
mhm,
And that's what I was getting at, if you have an interface there with the
and we do interface, we call it CARES as our financial system, and we do interface with CARES. So anything we purchase, like our fuel, we make fuel purchases for our bulk tanks, that has to go through our, the purchase gets entered into our system, but it also has to go into our CARES system. And through MMS upgrade that's coming on here in the new year, we will be able to, that'll be an interface out of our materials module.
Do you have, in Illinois, we have a central management services department that also has fuel that and we track our fuel by our bulk fuel, our commercial fuel, or WEX, and then our CMS fuel as well. Do you have an agency like that where they, like another source where you get fuel and you pay for it? And if so, if not, is there a way to do that as have another source besides WEX? So when you had your 3 divisions in your window, we could have a division maybe for just the CMS purchases as well?
And that's what I would think would work best for you, because there are other sources that, like, sometimes if it's 2:00 in the morning and their fuel card is not working for some reason, and that happens very rarely, they will put it on their Pro card, or they will purchase it on their credit card, and then we have to reimburse them back. So that other window in our program that shows all of our fuel for that unit is a way you can capture another source other than your vendor that you're assigned for under contract.
And it doesn't have to necessarily use your WEX card, you can use other sources of payment?
Yes, it comes into our system through our CARES, through our accounting system. It comes back through our system, through CARES, I think that's how it's provided in there. And I look at Lynn, because she did a lot of the programming for this, and it comes back in, it's through our EQPO3 process that we take in any of those direct charges. They're not through the WEX, and we put them into our other sources. So it's another interface job that runs monthly, that goes out and grabs those direct charges that are not part of the WEX.
Yeah, both of these are monthly, and so they're gonna be behind 1 month. So in May, you get the April file.
Any other questions?
I have a two-part question, just for clarification. Are you correcting all your meter errors basically prior to putting into your EVMS?
And so what we're doing is step 1, when we're actually inserting the file, we have, the end user will go through and she'll look at all the odometer readings and see if there's anything kind of flags out. 16,000 records is a lot of records to fly through, so I can imagine I'll be getting in touch with Lynn on the Ohio, because that is a lot of records to go through and look to see if there's any bad odometers. I mean, we try our best. The ones, like I said, most of our drivers are pretty trained now and when they are lazy, it's pretty obvious with the 111 or the 0 or the 5 or whatever, because they're just tapping numbers in. They don't get creative with their numbers. So we can see them pretty easily.
You can sort your screen by
Yeah.
the odometer, so if you sort it by odometer, you have 5 or 6 records of just zeros.
So that screen is part of your import process?
Yes.
part of it.
Yes, sir. So we didn't have a screenshot of that on here. So what happens is you run the first one and it imports the raw data and validates, and there's actually a screen in the application, and it has the error text for anything that errored out, and then all the data past that. So it would show, for instance, it may be showing outside of range of odometer, or it would say invalid fuel type or invalid fuel card. And then you can make updates on that screen. So if it was the wrong fuel type, go in and change the fuel type. And then when that second job runs, it would see that you made a correction, and then it would go through and allow it. So if it was the odometer and you corrected the odometer, when you run that second job, it's gonna say, actually, nope, this odometer is fine, let's go ahead and import it.
Okay, let's thank these ladies. That was very good.
Thank you.